Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So, this is your weekly update about unemployment in the United States. 837,000 new unemployment claims were filed last week, and the figures from last week were revised upward by 3,000. So, it brought the total from last week's unemployment filings to 873,000 Americans. This is just unbelievable. Although the numbers have dipped very slightly, this is just untenable. I don't know how this country is going to survive with these levels of unemployment claims coming in every single week. People are not going to make it, and people are going to become desperate. So the Department of Labor also reported that ongoing unemployment claims, while it remained high, it did decrease by 980,000. So ongoing unemployment means that people have been on the unemployment roll for 2 weeks or more. It remains at 11,767,000 people. Just unreal. And I'm going to get to what little our so-called leaders are doing. New unemployment claims filed under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program totaled 650,120. So that's in addition to that 873,000, because these are people who are either gig workers or they're self-employed. They're people who don't qualify for the traditional unemployment benefits, so they have to file for this other program that was created. It's just huge. These numbers are huge. Ongoing claims under that program were an additional 11,410,703 people. And according to the Labor Department, the total number of people receiving some form of unemployment assistance for the week ending September 12th was 26,529,810. That number includes federal employees, newly discharged veterans, other various non-traditional unemployment benefits, including that pandemic unemployment assistance program that I just mentioned. So that's an increase. The total number of people who have been receiving ongoing unemployment assistance increased by nearly 500,000. So it increased 484,856 over the previous week. And it's showing no signs of slowing. People who think, oh, we're coming out of it, states are opening up again. No, I expect next week's numbers to look horrific, because Disney just announced that they are laying off 28,000 employees. They are blaming the state of California for this, but really, what are you supposed to do in a state with so many people and a pandemic that has not been managed properly and is not under control? I mean, you can control what goes on in the state if you lead that state, but you can't control who comes into the state. You can't control people who are refusing to follow the mask rules and laws or requirements, and infecting other people, or potentially infecting other people who are traveling out of state and then coming back potentially with the virus. You know, Disney lost a lot of money. I think that they're just trying to blame another party, but they lost $1 billion in the second quarter of this year. They lost an additional $3.5 billion in the third quarter of this year. The airline industry also may be laying off up to 40,000 employees today. They had a program in place that was really the gold standard. It really should have been implemented nationwide. It allowed for their employees to remain connected to their jobs, and it protected the airline industry as a whole. So they weren't having to keep people on the payroll. The government was essentially taking care of it, but it allowed them to remain connected to their jobs, connected to the companies, and it allowed them to maintain their status and therefore their benefits. Well, that has ended and nothing new has been put in place since. In addition to Disney and the airlines, the popular restaurant chain P.F. Chang's, they were forced to let go of 150 employees in Pennsylvania. They've also filed warning notices for South Carolina and North Carolina restaurants, which indicates that approximately 225 people could be laid off in the southern part of the states, and the 525 additional employees could face layoffs in North Carolina. Warning notices were also issued for P.F. Chang restaurants in Ohio, where 90 employees are at risk. And the insurance giant Allstate announced that they'll be laying off 7.5% of their workforce, which equates to 3,800 employees. Shell Gas Company announced yesterday that up to 9,000 of their employees would be terminated. And in the midst of all this, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis opened up his entire state, and he announced that he plans to allow the state's eviction and foreclosure moratorium to expire. I mean, I don't know what these people are going to do. And most impacted by all of this are people of color and women. So that is becoming glaringly clear. Latino women were the highest rate of all groups as far as unemployed people in this country. They had an unemployment rate of 20.5% in April, and women in general had a higher rate than men. So 16.2% of women were unemployed as compared to 13.5% of men as of April. Black workers peaked at 16.8% unemployment in May. Latino workers overall had the highest level of unemployment of all groups. They hit a high of 18.9% unemployment, and Asian workers hit a high of 15% unemployment in May, and they are said to be the slowest to resume working. And all of this is primarily due to the types of jobs that are typically occupied by people of color and offered to people of color. It's sad that the fact that they are the hardest hit, their jobs are the first to shut down, and they're the last to reopen. We need changes. We absolutely need changes. One really interesting statistic that I came across was that pre-pandemic, younger people, their unemployment numbers have pretty much not changed. So pre-pandemic, the unemployment rate for people between the ages of 16 to 24 was 8.2%. So it hasn't really moved much for that age range. Not good for the future of our country. So what are our so-called fearless leaders doing about this? Well, the Democrats have introduced a modified HEROES Act. Of course, their original HEROES Act was kicked to the curb by Republicans. They refused to even consider it. That original plan carried a price tag of $3 trillion. The new plan has a price tag of $2.2 trillion. So the Democrats have come down off of that total to appease the Republicans, but they're still pitching a fit. The $2.2 trillion plan would provide everyone with an additional $1,200 stimulus check, which is not good enough in any way, shape, or form, given that we've been in the midst of this pandemic for how many months? 6 months, 7 months. And it would restore the extra $600 monthly unemployment payment, which would help tremendously. We know from data and research done when that was in effect earlier this year, it helped so much. It really helped people keep their heads above water. This new package would also include $436 billion in state, local, and tribal government aid. And it also includes a new paycheck protection program for small businesses that is said to be much easier to navigate and apply for. This scaled back package also offers $225 billion to help schools, including colleges, But who knows? It's probably going to pass in the House, which is controlled by Democrats, but it's probably going to get shut down. I would really be shocked if Mitch McConnell even brought it up for a vote in the Senate, which is what he's been doing with everything across the board, not just in regard to unemployment and help for the American people in this instance, but on everything. He calls himself the Grim Reaper for a reason. And here's the thing, even this package, I don't feel does enough, because that additional $600 in unemployment benefits would only last until January. That is when the rent moratorium ends and the tab comes due, because remember, that rent moratorium that Trump put in place doesn't mean that you don't owe that money. It's like a big balloon payment sitting there waiting to hit you in between the eyes. I mean, that money is going to be due. You are going to owe all of your back rent. And people have now been without that $600 unemployment benefit, or additional benefit, I should say, since the end of July. They've gone 2 months now. So they're now 2 months behind on basic expenses. And now you're expecting people, you're going to give them this $600 and a $1,200 stimulus. That will go a long way in helping them to pay their existing current bills. But what about everything that fell behind? And then what happens when the tab comes due in January? They're just missing the bigger picture. And Republicans are even worse. I mean, they just keep punching not only their constituents in the face, but they're punching themselves in the face by refusing to take up any bills. They are saying they won't consider anything over $1 trillion. Now, all of a sudden, they're worried about the national debt, even though they had no problem with literally pumping $1 trillion a day into the stock market and essentially socializing Wall Street. That was fine. We had the money for that. We can raise the national debt for that. But for average Americans, no, you can all go screw yourselves. We don't give a damn. I mean, I don't understand this. I don't understand if they're just so in their elite bubbles that they don't know what's going on. They're literally willing to do anything for the stock market, for their corporate donors, for corporate elites, for the wealthy in this country. But when it comes to average Americans, nope, don't have it. You're the redheaded stepchild. It's shameful and it's disgusting. So anyway, guys, as always, like, share, subscribe. Take care. Thanks for listening to Plants and Politics. The only way we can take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again.